Good Friday morning and welcome back to AM 560 The Answer. Amy Jacobson here and Bruce Wolf sitting in for Dan Proft, who had to rest today after his big win yesterday in our golf outing scramble. He and his crew were 15 under. Me and my crew.
I thought they were under the table after the...
No. And me and my crew, I played with the mayor of Tinley Park, Liz Gorman, former Cook County Commissioner, as well as Brad O'Halloran and John. I'm just going to call him Music John because he played his radio the entire time until the battery died. Thank goodness. So, and thanks, because of course, all the proceeds go to the 100 Club of Chicago. And we want to thank our key sponsor, Joe Cotton Ford, Tracy over there at Joe Cotton Ford, and of course, Bolingbrook Golf Club for hosting a great event. And if you didn't make it out last year or this year, come next year.
Who takes a day off after just playing golf? I used to play golf every single day that I was working.
Yeah, he's in another golf tournament today.
Oh,
Dan likes to hit the little white ball down the court.
And also likes to play golf.
Yes, but thank you so much for everyone that attended. And again, the 100 Club of Chicago, you can always donate money to them because this Saturday, they're going to the funeral of the Dalton firefighter who was killed a few days ago during a fire. So they're going to be presenting his family with a check to help them get through these difficult times. Big news yesterday while we were golfing, though, is that President Trump, he took to Twitter again with news of the obstruction of justice investigation. At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he tweeted, "Why is that Hillary Clinton's family and Dems dealing with Russia are not looked at, but my non-dealings are?" Only to be followed up 10 minutes later with Crooked H destroyed phones with hammer, bleached emails, and had husband meet with AG days before she was cleared, and they talk about obstruction.
But Donald Trump dropped that. See, because he has prosecutorial discretion. Remember, he looked at Hillary Clinton during the debate and said, he stood right next to her, side to side, and said, you're going to jail, or I'm going to, we're going to continue the investigation or resurrect it because Comey had kind of closed it.
Yeah, he wanted to sign a special prosecutor for Hillary Clinton, which he did not do.
Well, then, because he's the president of the United States and he is the boss of the Attorney General and is the boss of the FBI director, he just decided, that's it. I'm going to let her go. But no, we can't let Donald Trump go because there's no, as you were saying during the break, they're there. Thank you, Gertrude Stein. And now the charade continues. Well,
the Washington Post released an article breaking, this story that President Trump is now under investigation for obstruction of justice. And they didn't quote, but they said that they had 5 anonymous sources close to the investigation. Well, late last night, the second in charge at the Attorney General's office, the Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, released a statement on anonymous allegations, which I thought was, it piqued my interest. Americans should exercise caution before accepting as true any stories attributed to anonymous officials, particularly when they do not identify the country, let alone the branch of agency of government. So
it's also illegal to disclose that because you're not supposed to disclose that there's an investigation going on.
Well, let's begin there with Matthew Whitaker. He's former U.S. Attorney and Executive Director of the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. Good morning, Matthew. How are you?
Good morning, Amy and Bruce. I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, so what do you make of this Deputy Attorney General releasing this statement about anonymous allegations and sources and that it may not even be linked to American journalists?
Well, I'm super excited to talk about speculating what Rod Rosenstein would be saying in his statement. But I mean, if I'm going to tease out what that says, I mean, he's saying that the president is not under investigation for obstruction of justice. So be very cautious. I read it, the whole thing when that came out the first time with those 5 anonymous sources that the Washington Post was referring to was related to Bob Mueller's investigation and the fact that he was going to interview 3 intelligence officials, and then those 3 interviews were kind of mentioned by these 5 anonymous sources, and that's kind of who these 5 anonymous sources are is very interesting. And then for Rod to say that, who actually I served with, as he was a U.S. attorney when I was a U.S. attorney, he was in Baltimore, and U.S. attorney for Maryland, and I was in Des Moines, Iowa, but he's a good guy, and so obviously this leak that somehow Trump Trump's under investigation for obstruction of justice bothered him enough that he felt he had to at least come out and say, that may not entirely be true.
Well, do you think President Trump encouraged him to release this statement? Because this isn't normal behavior for the second in charge at the Attorney General's office. Or am I wrong?
No, this is unusual, but at the same time, these kind of things rise to a level where they are so outrageous in the allegations and sourced by people that won't even say who they are, where they work, or what they do, or how close they are to the investigation. That some of this stuff has to be dispelled, or it can dramatically alter the course of American history. And I wish Rod would have just come out and said that the president is not under investigation for obstruction of justice.
Yeah.
But
no, Matt, I object. He had to because if he did say that, then he would have a duty to correct later in the event that Donald Trump became a target. He'd have a duty to correct.
Correct. Well, the duty to correct is related to congressional testimony. I believe. I think that's what Jim
is it really, or is it whatever they want it to be? Because it's very difficult.
Well,
it's difficult to understand this. Comey wasn't supposed to. Rosenstein gave us his reasons that Comey should have been dismissed, which apparently Trump used as a cover for about 12 hours or 12 minutes. That Comey wasn't supposed to come out. He had exceeded his authority. But Comey felt that he supposedly had to because of the meeting between Loretta Lynch and Donald Trump on the tarmac. And then we have everything leaked except the fact that Trump isn't really under investigation, as Marco Rubio said during Comey's testimony. So it seems like it's on an ad hoc basis that we decide what should be released when the Federal Bureau of Matters, as I believe, Loretta Lynch wanted the agency's name to be changed to instead of an investigation regarding Hillary.
Yeah.
So when are you supposed to say that things are going on, and when are you not supposed to say that things are going on?
Well, fundamentally, as a former federal prosecutor, one of my favorite things to say was I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of an investigation, and we don't talk about ongoing investigations or their existence. So I think that is always best served. And once these things start being talked about, I think it's very dangerous, and you end up in the situation we are, where you have a bunch of federal former prosecutors coming out and speculating as to what might be going on, and then anonymous sources suggesting, sort of what is going on. But Bruce, I think we need to take a step back, and we need to talk about this administration, and more importantly, the permanent bureaucracy that is in Washington, D.C., and in places like the Department of Justice and the State Department and the intelligence communities, and their willingness to leak selective information.
Oh, Matthew. Selective information, and they
just
cut
cut
his
off.
line.
He just got cut off by the feds. Yeah, I'm saying it's
NSA
a conspiracy.
Is listening.
I'm saying
we'll
because I
try to
wanted to ask.
We'll try to reconnect with Matthew.
All right.
Yes, but what did you want to ask?
Well, because the New York Times has this story, and Andy McCarthy deconstructed it in National Review yesterday. It was hysterical. The latest story, just to add to the so-called obstruction thing,
is the possible money laundering by Jared Kushner and
money
Paul
laundering.
Manafort.
But the point is that yes, if there was collusion, if you go with that hypothesis, then you'd look into whether there was money laundering. But they don't have the underlying thing. There is no collusion that they've been able to find. So yeah, of course, if there is collusion, you would have money laundering. So the New York Times makes it sound like there's actually an investigation, like there's an investigation into it, like they actually have something, when actually they have bupkis, and that's a legal term of art. Bupkis.
Mr. Whitaker, hold on one second. Okay, Mr. Whitaker, are you there?
Yep, I am.
Oh, much better connection. So as you were saying, do you want to finish your thought?
Well, I was just saying it's all bupkis.
And that is a legal term of art in the Des Moines, at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Des Moines.
In Des Moines, Iowa.
It's actually a legal term we use over in flyover country.
Oh, really? All right, so you said that you'd worked before with Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. Rosenstein. I didn't say, no, Stein. And is he a reputable guy? I mean, do you trust him?
Yes, I mean, it's funny. Actually, when I served with him as U.S. Attorney, we called him Rod Rosenstein. And now that he's the Deputy
See?
Attorney General, he's changed his name. So that's actually one of the funniest things. Of
Is
this
that
whole,
really?
That
Oh,
is
you're not.
crazy.
Wait a
No,
minute, Matt.
it's true.
Are you pulling our leg? Is that true?
No, this is the funny thing is I for my entire and he and I served together for 5 years, and I saw Rod all the time at the various U.S. attorneys, and he's a very friendly guy, very very serious and sober, and super kind of a prosecutor's prosecutor. But it was Rod Rosenstein, and that's what we all called him, and that's what we referred to him as, and we talked about him or talked to him, and suddenly I'm on all this, I'm on CNN and all these other national news outlets and talking about this situation, and all of a sudden the name is Rosenstein. And,
We have a scoop right here. Let's get this out on the wires. I mean, this is the biggest thing that WIND has come up with in the last 4 hours.
Well, listen,
and,
I'm afraid that if the president gets a hold of this, suddenly he's going to be tweeting about, why did Rod change his name? What's he trying to hide?
Well, he was young Rosenstein, and then when he got older, he became Stein because there's a little more cachet to Stein.
Maybe he did a DNA test and found out what his heritage actually is.
So, Matt, let me, I hate to get serious because it's just not my want, but here's the thing. And we were mentioning while we were vamping to try to get you back on the air here, this New York Times story, which Andy McCarthy deconstructs in National Review, it makes it sound like they're looking at money laundering, but they're really not looking at money laundering. They're just hypothesizing that if there was collusion, then of course you have to launder money. And as McCarthy says, but there's no there yet.
Right.
I mean, of course they will have a duty to correct at some point if there is a there.
Bruce, I can tell you love that duty to correct. It won't
He
correct
does.
it. That's
He's
the
got it
thing
on a
about this stuff,
T-shirt.
is it never gets corrected. But you're right. I mean, and this is the thing. Let's go back. The one point I wanted to make as it relates to this sort of announcing with great fanfare from these anonymous sources to the Washington Post that the president is under investigation for obstruction of justice. Of course, the special counsel, Bob Mueller, is going to investigate that allegation. Can you imagine a scenario where he produces a report at the end of all this and doesn't look at obstruction of justice? The members of Congress, especially the Democrats, their heads would explode when they call him up in front of them and say, well, why didn't you look at obstruction of justice? In fact, we read reports that you were looking at obstruction of justice. I mean, of course he's going to look at obstruction of justice.
Right, that's what he's
Can you
supposed to do.
imagine? Can you imagine Dianne Feinstein or Stein?
It's Feinstein today.
Exactly.
Okay?
Well, I mean, listen. This is another point I made the other night on Anderson Cooper's show. Is that it is very curious to me that Jim Comey tells the president 3 times, which has been confirmed, that he's not under investigation. But suddenly, when the president fires Jim Comey, he's under investigation now for obstruction of justice. I mean, it's Jim was the one in the room where it happened, and had didn't report it to anybody except his very senior staff at the FBI, didn't tell his bosses, wrote it down in a secret memo that was not part of a FBI 302 or
in his diary.
No, his Hello Kitty.
Yeah,
book.
dear diary. I met with the president today.
Hey, I'm so glad that Matt Whitaker agreed to slum it after he's on Anderson Cooper and
Oh,
deigned
will
to
you
be
stop?
on with us today.
Stop it. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so
Well, you know what? Dan and Amy have been very good to me and kind of put me where I am today.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
We catapulted
regular
his
CNN
career.
contributor.
Yes. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Matthew
you.
Whitaker, and hopefully happy Father's Day early for you
Thank you.
and your
Thank you.
family. Former U.S. Attorney and Executive Director of the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. He joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.